Hey kids, thanks for joining me in the garage again today. We're going to be tearing down and rebuilding this alternator off the 99 4Runner. This is the original one on the truck. I've got a secondary one on there now that's a high output, but we're going to keep this as a trail spare. So like, subscribe, comment down below. See you in just a minute. All right, so here is a alternator. So this is original part number, looks like 27060626160. So this is off the 99 4Runner. We're going to be tearing this apart. I've got new bearings. I'll put all the part numbers down below. We've got all the parts to rebuild this, kind of make it basically like brand new. I imagine this is exactly what they do when they rebuild these. They probably don't put new windings, I imagine, in there. Although, like the one I have on the 4Runner currently is a high output alternator. It's 150 amp compared to these stock. I think they're 60 or 80 amps on the truck. So to get started here, first thing you got to do is take this little plastic cap off. That's a 10 millimeter. So I'm gonna have to go find where I put my 10 millimeter at here. All right, looks like I found it. So get that off of there. Be pretty easy. And then that'll come right off. Got a new one of these little plastic insulators, but we'll keep the nut over here for safekeeping. And then if we set it on the end here, what you'll see is you've got 1, 2, 3 little nuts. I think these are 8 millimeter, and then a little Phillips head. So let's get those off next. And then once you've got those all off, there's a little piece here that kind of goes on that, just kind of as a ground. So let's set that over here. So now you can see the brush assembly and the regulator here. And so that's the next thing to get off. But actually, before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and pull this pulley off, I think. So I believe that is a 22 millimeter. I'm just going to hit that with the impact and get that off here. All right, should just take a couple of rat-a-tats. There we go. Just had to hold that pulley. That'll just slide right off. Keep those together. And then back here on the regulator side, you've got basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Phillips heads. These two right here should pull out the brush assembly. So there is the brush assembly. We'll set that off over there. And then these other 3, we'll remove the regulator. Didn't quite get all of those. There you go, there is the regulator. Set that right there, we'll need that. Next thing are these 4 kind of on the side here that hold the rectifier in there. And so just again, Phillips head. Get these guys off of there. That one's being a little stubborn, so let me hit that with the impact here.
A few moments later.
All right, Dremel to the rescue here. I just cut a slot in there. So I should be able to get a big flathead in there. There. All right, get that rectifier off of there. There we go. Now basically we just have, well, let's pull this little plastic or rubber washer out of there. So now just have 8mm bolts, and we can then separate the case here. So okay, so now we need to separate this case. The way I'm going to do that, we should just be able to do a little bit of hammering. Get my small brass hammer here. Oh yeah, you know, before we do that even, gotta get these rubber insulators off. So the way these work, you've got kind of a wedge on the end, and so that goes towards the inside all the way around. Those insulate those from the case, because the case is grounded on here. So yeah, probably should have done that first. It looks like that's moving, so I should be able to get a small pry bar down in there. Wants to come off. One thing I probably will do here, just to make this easier, is mark a spot on the case. Make it a little easier to know how to get it back together there. You know, I think what I might do here is see if I can't get a puller on that, and then I can kind of pull on this part here. So that seems to be doing the trick. There we go. Looks like what was going on is this bearing is pressed in on this shaft here. So here's a little washer on that shaft. Thought usually it stays on there, but obviously that is not the case. All right, so you can see that bearing still in there. We're going to need to get that out of there. I don't think that'll be too difficult. I bet just maybe a socket in there. There's a little washer in there. Kind of hard to see, but should be able. I think I have a replacement for that washer, so not too big a deal on mashing that up. So let's see. We're going to put this off on the side for now, and then we're going to need to press this out as well. So I think what we'll do is we'll just go over to the press and set that down there, and probably just give it a few whacks. So let's go over there and get that done. All right, here we are at the press, and what I've got here set up is the 1-inch Harbor Freight press plates, and then my own 1-inch press plates on either side, and then 2 1/2-inch on top of that. Basically, this other side here, this spot that you're going to press from is another inch higher than this other side. So that should just sit down there level. And then we'll center that up a little bit. Let's see here. And then you want to press down on the stud. The bearing that's in there is actually encased, in a little case. So you don't want to press down on the edge of the bearing. And so it should just come right out. You want to get your hand up under there. That way you can catch this. But yeah, it pretty easily comes right out just like that. So let's raise this back up. And that'll just pop right out. There is the inside of the case there, and then the rotor. And so as you can see, set that right there. You've got that bearing in there that's encased in a little case. So we're going to pop that out now. Just four little nuts. I think these are 8mm or 7mm. You could put a hex on those, but I'm just going to use a Phillips. We'll pull that plate off, and then we'll press that bearing out. Here's that little plate. And then now you can actually get down into there and press that bearing. So let's do that next. Kind of the same setup here. This time I have an 18mm socket that will just set on there. I'll go ahead and put this plate back on there. And this shouldn't really take a whole lot. Put my hand under there, try and catch everything. There you go. There's the bearing there. Also, we've got this one on the front cover that we're going to need to get out as well. If you remember back on the bench, there's this little washer in there. We might be able to save that with the right size socket. So let's see what I can find here in the way of sockets. I think the 18mm is going to be too big. So I think a 13 is going to be the number that we do on this. It's probably going to ruin that little washer, but I believe in my kit I have a replacement for that. Yeah, the replacement for that is right here, part number 27443-63020. I'll have that down below all these parts that I'm using. So let's go ahead and not worry about mashing that up. So the way we'll set this up, we'll give this a little more height. It is even on either side. So you should just be able to put it in there like that. Get this lowered down. Set my little pressing plate on there. Just that easy. If you're really in a pinch, you probably could whack those with a hammer. That's a little more violent, but it could be done if you don't have a press like this. So you can see behind that is a little kind of a wavy thrust bearing. I have a replacement for this as well. And then here is that little top hat washer that we kind of mangled. So you want to make sure when you're doing this, that you've got a replacement for that. All right. So next thing is start getting it all back together. All right, so to get this back together, we've got new bearing here. I've already taken it out, but it's part number 90099 and 10140, it looks like. All right, kind of tore that out of there. Again, going to have all of the part numbers down below here. So to get this in here, got this little hat washer, part 27443632020. That goes in there first, and that goes with the rim, which would be going towards the outside of the case. And that just fits down in top there. And then we've got this little wavy washer, 27384500030. Again, all the parts down at the bottom there. So that goes down in there. And then we got to press all this down in. So you don't want to set this on these bolts here. You want to have this set on something. What I've got is my old bushing from my front end here, but that should get this to where you can just press it down in there. I'm going to get this started and then probably then get a socket on there. Make sure it's all the way down in there nice and snug. I can just push it in there with my finger almost. So let's back that off now. So it does need to go down a little bit more. Let me grab a socket here. And you want to make sure when you're pressing down on this, you want to press around the edge of this bearing. Otherwise, you're going to risk, you don't want to press on the inside of it because that's going to end up ruining that race. So let me I have to move this a little bit here. So I've got a 26 millimeter socket. Seems to be just maybe a little, so I'm going to come down pretty slow on this. Make sure I'm not hitting the edges. That 26 is just slightly too big. So let's go down to a 24. I think the 24 will do the trick. Make sure that's nice and centered. And then also, before you get it all the way down, you're going to want to make sure that this little hat there is set in there correctly. So that way you don't mess that up. There we go. Don't really need to press too hard on it. And that is in there. All right, so now the next thing we got to do is get the bearing on the back side put in as well. So let's set that down. Get this wiped off in here. This one will be a little bit easier because you can just, you don't have to set it up on anything. So this part number here for the rear case is 90099100192. Again, down in the description. So yeah, I've got a this is a 36mm socket, and that will just fit right down in there. Then we got to get that plate back on there. I'm gonna wipe this down, and there's two little, well, four, I guess, little hooks that kind of are gonna have little spots in there so that this doesn't move around. Doesn't matter where exactly it goes, but that'll at least get that centered for you. All right, so now see, I've got that plate in there down at the bottom. Just give it one more once over. Make sure it's all tight. That's good. All right. Next thing to do is to get that rotor down in there. So now that we've got that in there and that looks good, we can get this top case put on. Just want to make sure these rectifier connections don't get snagged in there. And then you've got that little top hat washer, and then we can press this all back on. You got to press it back onto that bearing on the top there. So just make sure that all looks good. Set that on there. I think I'll actually raise this up a little bit more. Just want to make sure you're not snagged on anything. And then I've got that 26mm socket that just kind of goes right there over the shaft. Get everything in there good. Make sure you're nice and centered. And that should just press right nicely on. Don't even need the handle, just like that. All right. Now that's all together. Still spins pretty good. So now we go back to the bench here and finish getting it all put back together. All right, so got those all pressed on. I think the next thing is get these 4 nuts back on here. That'll get this entirely put in. Crank down. That is a 8mm nut. Pretty sure since those are 8mm, the torque specs on it are probably not very high. So just get it to those German specs good and tight. All right. And then next was this. So this is the little insulator. Oops. This little, what is this? Seal, sub-assembly seal plate? I don't know. Little plastic washer. Get all these old parts out the way. So that just sits right in there. And then we've got these 4 little rubber ones. I've got new ones of those. So those are 27389-42010, and there are 4 of those. And again, when you're putting these on, this little wedge that you can see there, it goes inboard. So just like that. There you go. Those are all in there. And then we also have, here's a new brush assembly. That is part 27370-75060. Oh, and before we actually put this on, we need to get the rectifier on first. And that goes on these 3 bolts, and then the little posts come up and then screw onto that. And so we'll get these little guys on there. Of course, we got our little mangled one, which is now, rather than a Phillips, is a flathead. Next thing to do is to get the regulator in there. So that just goes in. So it's kind of a triangle, 1, 2, 3. So this small screw here goes in this spot right there. And the other 2 right there. And right there. And then we can get the brush assembly in. And so the brush assembly, you'll see here, there's a little raised area on it. And so that area goes down. And so got our little screws here at the ready. And then get a little screwdriver here. You'll have to, you can see that those brushes are stuck out. And so you'll have to kind of go in here, push them down with like a screwdriver, and then get them on to those contacts there. Just like that. And then we can screw these in. So hit all these one more time, make sure they're good and tight before we then kind of close this up. All right, next thing is on the inside of this case, there's this little insulator here. I got a new one of those as well. So part number on that is 27388-42010. Basically what it does, if you look at it here. I believe it goes on top like that in essence. So that way when you put this on, you can kind of see how it's oriented there. There we go. And don't forget, got this little piece. It goes right there. And that's just a screw here. These are 8mm bolts. All right, almost done. Last thing is we've got the little insulator that we're also putting a new one on here. That's the old one. This is the new one. This one is actually cracked, so needed to be replaced. So, and this has kind of a D shape to it. So same with the bottom of this. Slide that on there, pop it in, put this little nut on there. And that is I believe that's a 10, yeah. And then that's all together. We do need to put the pulley back on. Thing with this though, you may not be able to, this should be torqued, but I'll put the torque value down below, but since I don't really have anything to hold this on there, I'm not going to be able to torque it all the way, but I will just hit it a few times with the rat-tat-tat. And so there you go. Looks like it runs pretty good. So there you go. I hope you learned something. Got this all put back together. We can put it on the car. Well, this is going to be a trail spare, but anyway, hope you did learn something. If you like what you saw, hit that thumbs up. If you're watching for the first time, consider hitting that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. Keep on wrenching.